Hey everyone, welcome to Gen X March the Spot. Tonight, I've got a very special guest. We're going to be who it will be here momentarily. We are going to be discussing one of those touchstone true crime cases that have captured the public imagination, and that is the case of Susan Smith and the murders of her two young sons, Michael, who was almost 3 at the time, and Alex, her younger son, that was about 14 months. This was the case that involved her rolling her Mazda protege into John D. Lone Lake outside Union, South Carolina, and then allowing her children to sink to the bottom, and then proceeded to spend 9 days lying to the American public. Well, as you know, last month, the very same Susan Smith was up for parole and was denied. So that's the topic I'm going to be discussing with my good friend Keri Smith from over at Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. She's running just a tad bit late, but she'll be here very, very soon. But in the meantime, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Tracy. This is my channel, Gen X March the Spot. I cover topics like true crime. That is my bread and butter. But I also cover movies, particularly horror movies, Gen X pop culture, and history. I'm a bit of a nerd all the way around. I also have a universal tree that stays decorated year round. It's still stuck on Thanksgiving with the turkey from friends up here, but it has not yet switched over to Christmas. I honestly don't know if this one will switch over to Christmas because we will be leaving Tennessee, where I live, for the sunny haven of Florida for the Christmas holidays. So I will be streaming and recording from there over the next couple of weeks. So maybe there'll probably be a tree there for me to get in front of. But right now, it's just kind of stuck on Thanksgiving. But hopefully Keri will be along very, very soon, giving everybody a moment to get in here. So as I said, this is one of those true crime cases that talking about for years. It happened in October of 1994. You had two young people, David and Susan Smith, a young couple that had only been married about 4 years. They were, kind of a shotgun wedding, had to get married. Susan herself had a very, very tumultuous childhood that led her down a very dark path, ultimately to what we will see. And you will see as Keri and I discuss it, that her attitudes toward having to find validation through men, and particularly things that you do with men, is kind of what led directly to the murder of her two children. So once Keri gets here, we'll dive on in. I hope everyone's having a great night. If you are new to the channel, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're joining me on YouTube, the chat is open. If you are joining me on X, I'm very, very new to broadcasting on X. So, be sure to give me a like and a comment over there as well. But while we're waiting for Keri, I'll go into a little bit of history of the case. Susan Smith was born Susan Vaughn in 1971 in Union, South Carolina, a very small town near Columbia. She was raised in a very working class family up until the point that her biological father actually, because her mother had asked for a divorce, he decided to remove himself from the world. And that was very, very devastating to Susan. Also, the fact that her mother remarried very, very quickly to a very well-known family in Union, a very rich family, a family highly connected in the Republican Party of South Carolina, and proceeded to kind of sweep away the life she had with Susan's father. Susan also had an older brother. They were raised in pretty affluently, but unfortunately, her stepfather began doing things to her that adults should never, ever do to children. And basically her mom knew about it and refused to press charges. So protecting her child took a back seat to wanting to stay in the finer things of life. Susan's mother was all about materialism, living a comfortable life, and she would rather have that than protect her child. As a result, Susan became quite sexually free quite young, and began, even though she made good grades in school and was popular in school, she eventually became popular in middle and high school for a very different reason, and began going through men quite quickly. And as a result, kind of found her validity through that. She did want to move out of her stepfather's home, so she was working a couple of jobs in downtown Union by the time she was a teenager. She worked part-time in a sewing mill, as well as working at the local Winn-Dixie grocery store. It was there that she had several affairs with older men, a couple of them married, that caused quite a bit of drama. But it was there that she would meet her soon-to-be husband, David Smith, who had worked his way up from the age of 16. He was an assistant manager by the time he was 22, and they began dating. David himself was engaged at the time to another girl. He had quite a bad upbringing himself, also from a divorced home. His brother suffered from Crohn's disease, and David helped care for him. They lived with their great-grandmother on the outskirts of Union. They were very, very poor. His mother was a devout Jehovah's Witness that drugged them to Kingdom Hall, and so David had that to contend with, living in kind of that cult mindset. But he was a strong young man. He worked hard. He paid his own way through high school by working at Winn-Dixie, and eventually met Susan. He himself has said he thought it was a casual thing. He cheated on his then fiancee with Susan Smith, but then she got pregnant. Hey, Zippy, how are you, buddy? Thanks for joining. And she got pregnant with Michael, and so he did break it off with his fiance, and ended up marrying her. Their marriage was overshadowed by the very immediate, just quick, unexpected death of his older brother. And they ended up having to move in with his great-grandmother. During that time, David's father also attempted to remove himself from this world, and it was Susan that found him. So suffice to say, David and Susan Smith had a very, very hard start to their marriage. Now, I can't go through the entire case here. That's not what tonight's about. But if you are looking for a detailed breakdown of the case, I did do a video on it, and I will be happy to share that with everyone in the chat here in just a moment. But hey, Zippy, try not to doom scroll on Twitter. Well, not doom scrolling on Twitter is very hard to do sometimes, I'll tell you. But there's also a lot of good news on Twitter. You can't believe, we are the media now, you can't believe everything that you see on Twitter. So you have to have a discerning eye. Hopefully Keri will be here very, very soon. But as I said, they had quite a tumultuous relationship and a very poor start to their marriage, which resulted in a lot of infighting, a lot of argument, a lot of he said, she said. The two parents did not get along. The parents did not get along. Susan's parents and mother and stepfather thought they were better than David's family. So there was a lot of infighting there. There was a lot of financial woes because assistant managers at grocery stores don't make a whole lot. So they basically, instead of living in a very small little farmhouse that David himself had purchased that was quite old, quite in not the best shape, they ended up staying with his great-grandmother, and they ended up having Michael and raising him there. They did end up separating, in which case both of them ended up dating other people, but they did get back together, and immediately she was pregnant with Alex. In his book, Beyond All Reason, David said that a lot of people mentioned to him, "Are you sure Alex is yours?" He said he's never once doubted it, and he was happy to raise both children. But as it were, they did end up separating and going through divorce for good. He was living in an apartment. They were living in the more modern house that they had managed to buy with the help of Susan's stepfather. So see, that Susan's stepfather's connection is still there as well. And Susan was now working at Conso Products, which is one of the last mills that was left in Union. It made decorative columns and ribbons and stuff like that. A lot of it used at the White House, Buckingham Palace. It was owned by the Keri family. Susan got herself hired there and in the bookkeeping department, and eventually became secretary to the owner of the company, J. Finley, and ended up having an affair with him. And then later on, having a relationship with his son, Tom, whom she hoped to marry. That there was a problem there. Tom realized that not only had she been messing around with a lot of different men at the plant, again, her same habits from high school still hanging in there. Also, she had had a relationship with his father. Now, I can't think of anything that will ruin a date faster is comparing your date to his father. So, and with that being said, it looks like my co-host for the evening has arrived. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Keri Smith from Deprogrammed.
Hello, Tracy. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm so sorry. You're live. I thought it was pre-recorded. My bad.
No problem. I wanted to go ahead and go through the background on the case and
Okay.
kind of get that out of the way so that we can discuss currently what's going on.
Yes.
But how are you this evening?
I'm good. This has been a very busy time of year for me for some reason. I'm sure it's busy for everyone, so I can't complain. But yeah, it's just been traveling a lot. We traveled a lot the second half of this year, and then finally quit travel. My last 2-3 trips were about a week ago, and my whole body just broke down afterwards, or broke down right before.
I know you are so on the road. I mean, I'm kind of a hermit. I work both. I have a business that I can run from home, and then I do my YouTube from home. I rarely leave the house. I'm kind of a hermit. It's just me and my family and our animals. But
mine's like, I just want to do that and sit for a while. I'm so happy I'm not doing anything for Christmas. I have to say this morning, just quick out to, because I messed up my back like 3 weeks ago. So it just keeps getting worse. And so anyway, I went back to the doctor this morning, and the chiropractor is trying to talk to me. And I don't really I like when people are friendly, but I don't like when it's fake friendly.
Yeah.
Sort of where it's part of the job and they're told to do that. And I just felt like he's a little forcing it. And so I'm literally tensing him because he's about to crack something. And he's like, "So do you have any exciting plans for the weekend?" And I was like, "No." And then he cracks my back. and then, I have to work and I have other things to do. I'm not going to talk to you about that. And then he didn't stop. He goes, "Well, are you at least planning for some fun travel for the Christmas season?" And I was like, "No." And then he cracked the other side.
But crack my back. I want to go.
It's like, no.
It's like a dentist that tries to talk to you with his hands in your mouth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I was like, are we friends having coffee? We're not. Don't ask me questions. I'm tense.
But I will tell you something that happened to me just before Thanksgiving. I was sitting here. I was on a work meeting with one of my clients, and all of a sudden it felt like somebody stabbed me in the right side with a knife. I mean, it was bad. I thought I was having an appendicitis, a heart attack, something, because the pain was shooting up through my chest. And so I had to X off my meeting real quick. And I yelled for my wife, and she came and took me to the Vanderbilt Clinic near here. And turns out it's something called costochondritis. I had a very lovely nurse practitioner there that was she's a little older than me, but she was talking about all the things that happen to you as you age, particularly women. She said, "Yeah, you got costochondritis." She said it's inflammation of the tissue around that connects your rib cage to the rest of your chest. She
Okay.
said you've done something, or it's just years of using your upper torso that all of this is just inflamed. And she says, I've had it before. It does feel like a heart attack. She said, because it's just that pain. She said, you just gotta take ibuprofen and let it stop hurting. She said, but you're fine. You'll be fine. And so I've been dealing with that. And it still hurts. It moves.
Wow.
Right side to left side to back. And if I take a deep breath, it hurts. But she said it could take months for it to settle back down.
I need to look that up because I mean, that sounds similar to what it feels like, but I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with, but basically my whole body feels like it's just
No, but the reason
rebelling.
I said that, I told her that like a month ago, I tweaked my back by sneezing. She said, isn't it weird how that happens?
Yeah.
As you get older, you're not even doing anything fun. You're just
I
you
know.
sneeze and your back goes out.
That's what people are like, what happened? I was like, nothing. I stood up from a rocking chair.
Yeah.
And I pulled my back out. What is that? And I never blessedly, thank God I had never dealt with this kind of pain before, recurrent back pain or anything. My husband has, though. He used to have really bad back pain. He had some issues with his back, and he's fully recovered. And he takes a lot of turmeric and does all kinds of things, yoga and stuff for anti-inflammation. But anyway, it's new to me, so I'm freaking out, of course. And the second week of pain, it was still ongoing. I called him. He was out of town. I was about to get on the road and join him, but I called him and I was crying. I'm like, will it be like this forever? He's like, no, it's going to get better. You're going to get better. Don't worry. I'm like, is this my life now?
Well, mine was getting so much better when I lost like that 150 pounds that I lost. But during the election with the stress, I started stress eating and I gained back probably 20 or 30 pounds since the election, just because. And I'm still in that cycle. I'll try to get back on healthy eating, and I guess I'm just done until the holidays are over. I'm just like, I guess I'm going to be fat again, and I'll just have to lose it all over again.
Just writing it out through the holidays, man.
Yeah. But
well,
anyway,
thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem.
We're talking about Susan Smith. So you were setting up the case.
Yeah. I had gotten to the part that the David and Susan Smith had separated. She was trying to win over the rich son of her boss, who found out how many men she had been sleeping around with, including his father. And because of that and the fact she had kids and he didn't want them, he wrote her the quintessential Dear John letter and basically told her that nice girls don't do what she's doing. That, he just did not want to marry her. At least he was honest. And she has admitted that that's why then in October of 1994, she put both her kids in the back seat of her Mazda Protege, drove to John D. Long Lake outside Union, South Carolina, and let her car roll into the lake. Watched her kids bob there above the surface and then sink. And went to a nearby house saying that an African-American man had carjacked her car with 2 kids in it, and then proceeded to spend 9 days doing a national press tour, lying out her mouth. And then she was the local sheriff eventually figured it out, and she eventually got her into an interrogation, and she confessed, wrote out a confession. She was sentenced to life in prison. Tommy Pope, the local solicitor, that's what a DA in South Carolina, he wanted the death penalty, but the jury did not return death penalty. At the sentencing phase, they returned life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. And that's kind of where we are. This is literally her first parole hearing, came up in November 20th after her first 30 years in prison. And she'll have a parole hearing every 2 years after that, seeing if she'll get released. Tommy Pope, the prosecutor, her ex-husband, David Smith, a lot of the other Smith family was there testifying against why she shouldn't get parole. And the parole board agreed with them, and she was denied parole. So she's back in prison now for 2 years. Her record in prison has not been clean. She has been accused of sleeping with guards, passing contraband, being high on illicit drugs. So she hasn't been the most well-behaved prisoner either. And that's kind of where we are.
This was a huge case when I'm from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
This happened in 94. I was still in high school. Because it was local, it was all over the news, but I think it was nationally. Was it all over the news as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I lived in Alabama. I was a senior in I was just out of high school. I was in the military, and I saw it, on television, in our in our TV room. It was on 24-hour news cycle there. So yeah, everyone saw this.
And her lies, like her fake emotion and stuff, just she's one of those that I've gone back and watched. I like to watch, I'm come on your channel because true crime is my guilty
Things that I
pleasure.
call classic cases, as bad as that is. I rewatched this. I've rewatched stuff on the Chris Watts case, the Jeffrey McDonald case. There are things that I will go back and watch, even though I know the case in and out. But if something, I like to go back and watch the old coverage.
I do too, and I like to watch their interviews and when they lie to the press and stuff, like the Chris Watts one where he's being interviewed the day after in by the local media, because I think it gets to the heart of what we find fascinating about true crime in the first place. A lot of people who watch true crime, I think, probably we watch true crime because we're trying to understand the nature of evil. We're trying to understand the nature of human evil and how do people choose evil, and are they aware of what they're doing, and how do they deceive, and can we tell if somebody is that kind of person in our life, or the nature of human darkness. And so I have gone back like you, and I've rewatched the footage of her press conferences just to stand there. You said she lied out her mouth. Yeah, bald face lying, just straight to the camera, making up a story and blaming it on a black guy. I was carjacked,
and from what
my kids were killed, and it was a black guy.
What
were you going to say?
Yeah. And the composite information she gave the crime artist was the most generic black man you could ever imagine. It was a black man with a beanie. There was nothing descriptive about him. It was just, he literally looked like I'm going to see if I can find that and I'll share it. It is literally what she gave the composite artist to draw. It was literally looks like a character off of Fat Albert. I hate to use that, but literally it was like a cartoon character. It was the most generic description. Here, I'm going to pull it up for us. One moment. This is what she gave the local artist to draw from description. Hang on here. So sorry.
Well, that's okay. While you're pulling that up, I just want to say something about, she did a lot of the interviews before she confessed. She did a lot of the interviews where she was telling her fake story with her husband at her side. And this case, like a lot of cases where we see the ultimate in human darkness, murder, also involves the human darkness of infidelity. She was cheating on her husband with all kinds of people. And, Chris Watts' case also, which you mentioned, infidelity. There's so many cases. The guy in California, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Scott Peters, infidelity. Like, and I've started after watching.
Scott Peters, Lacey Peters. Yeah.
Is it Peterson? Scott Peterson. Yeah. So all of these cases, it's really started to make me think there's a link between, well, from a Christian perspective, between sins. But even if you're not a Christian, if you're not a believer, there's a link between different kinds of human darkness. And does it mean that everyone who engages in infidelity is going to murder? No, of course not. I'm just saying it's like you're opening a portal. You're opening a portal. You're willing to commit sins against your your nature, your heart, your God, your spouse, and what line you've already crossed a huge line.
Mm-hmm.
Like what line is next? And this is why I've now become really like,
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, don't sweat the so-called small stuff, because all of these sins are interconnected and
Yep.
they're building blocks to others. They could take you down an even much darker path than you're on, now. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that was
But
the picture of
this is
him.
the drawing. Yeah.
It
She
does look like,
described 40-year-old black man wearing a dark shirt, plaid jacket, jeans, and a dark knit cap. So basically, he was black. He was wearing clothes, and he was black. That's essentially what she gave the artist. Doesn't he look like a character from Fat Albert?
he absolutely does. That's not offensive.
I
That's
mean,
what that probably had in her head when she was describing him. She's like, generic black person did it. This is what that generic black person looks like. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
right. Because race relations in South Carolina in the 90s weren't poor enough. She had to go and do that. But from what I remember, the African American community near Union, South Carolina, and South Carolina has one of the largest concentrations of African Americans in the South, or in the country, as a matter of fact. That they all banded together and were out searching for the boys, doing everything they could to help find Michael and Alex. So they did not dwell on the obvious racism. They I don't say racism a lot. That was racism, to blame a
Yes.
black man on something you did
Yes.
yourself. F you, you're
Yes.
racist. To have that community come out and help like they did, you got to say something for the people of South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, I have to say something, that they denied her parole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
I read this statement from her ex-husband, who divorced her in 95, I think right before
Mm-hmm.
she went on trial.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a statement about her upcoming parole hearing where he basically said he doesn't want her released from
Yeah.
prison, that she's done incredible damage to so many people. And that's true.
No, he said
And
he would. Yeah.
he said, what?
Till the day he dies.
Your audio is dropping in and out for me. Is
And
it?
I believe his statement is here. A little bit. My internet must be bugging out. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't know if it's something I'm doing or not. Yeah, I'm
Here,
catching
I'll kill
every other
this
word.
as much as I want to share it.
Maybe I could share
But
something.
yeah,
You have
he said
video?
that he would be there every hearing, every 2 years. No, it wasn't video. It was just a news article from the AP.
Oh, okay. Well, I've become much more, I guess you could say, conservative minded. I don't mean in terms of red and blue or whatever. I just mean a conservative approach to crime and how to deal with criminals and how to deal with murder. And I'm one of those
Mm-hmm.
people who think that in terms of how the civil magistrate, the law should deal with crime, and it depends on the severity of the crime, the kind of crime, and whether or not a person has demonstrated that they're no longer to be trusted in polite society. And I think
Mm-hmm.
murder qualifies for that. I don't
Yeah.
believe in rehabilitation, and I believe in repentance. I do, but that doesn't require the trust of society to say, we trust that, you deserve to be back out amongst people again. No, you killed 2 defenseless little boys, your own boys. What
Boys.
wouldn't you do?
Yeah.
You killed your own
And
kid
even
slowly.
and if that wasn't evil, look at your record since you've been in prison. You're not you're not able to be rehabilitated. You're messed up. And I know that you were SA'd by your stepfather. I get that, because that came out, and he did confess to
Mhm.
that, her stepfather. I get that. I get what a terrible childhood you had. Your biological father committed suicide. You were SA'd, and then you became kind of a loose girl and a loose woman, sleeping around, and it was that desire to have a man love you that caused you directly to kill your children. So yeah, you're a messed up individual, but an individual that does not need to be in society.
Yeah, you've revoked access to civilized society because
Yeah.
you snuffed out the lives of 2 children, your own children, for such trivial, selfish, vain, sinful reasons.
Mhm.
And if you're willing to do something like that, you shouldn't be trusted out in the world again. Because what wouldn't you do? That's your own
Yeah.
flesh and blood that you did that to kids. So yeah, you're not safe. You're not a safe person.
No,
For
you're not.
I'm using that word in the real sense, not the way that social justice people use it. Like I'm really like,
No,
you're
no,
not a safe
you're not
person.
you really aren't a safe person. I'm mixed on the death penalty. I believe
Mhm.
there are some criminals that absolutely should just be removed from the map. In this case, I believe the jury got it right because they said if they had ordered the death penalty, she would have been out of pain. She would not have, she said, but they wanted her to sit in prison for at least 30 years and think about what she did. So I
Yes.
understand. I think they got that right. I think that was a worse punishment for her than death. But then there are some people that are just literally too dangerous to be kept alive. You know, like Ted Bundy, like
Yes.
um,
Yes.
John Wayne Gacy, even though Charles Manson would have been executed had the California not gotten rid of the death penalty. Uh, so yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
here's
there are
that video.
people who either like Ted Bundy who showed that he would continually find ways to escape,
Hmm.
or people like Manson who are able to control people to do their evil bidding for them from behind bars. You know, there are people like that who, even behind bars, it's like they're still a danger to society. Bundy was still a danger to society because he was always escaping.
Yeah,
He had a high enough IQ and was willing to take risks and chances, and he took them. And he wasn't that wasn't someone that you are I'm just going to keep this guy behind bars, and that's not going to happen again. It happened
Charles
twice,
Manson.
right?
Yeah, Charles Manson had followers on the outside till the day he
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
You know, that would do his bidding. Um, you know, there a lot of these killers have. That was something that came up in the parole hearing for Susan Smith. She had some men that were willing, that she'd been corresponding with by letters and telephone calls, that were going to set her up in an apartment with, support. So she would be going from prison to an apartment and have her bills paid. She killed her kids.
That's insane. Yeah.
These
It's a,
people have stands. To this day, I get hateful comments on both my Chris Watts and my Jeffrey McDonald video telling me I'm crazy that they're both innocent.
what?
I got one this morning telling me that this is an innocent man. He lost his entire family, and here's somebody like you that don't have half the sense of him, telling everybody that he murdered his family. I'm like,
Who? Which
really?
one?
A Jeffrey McDonald. Really, he's a doctor, and you ain't got nowhere near literally, the person said, you ain't got nowhere near the sense of him.
You doctors don't murder? There's a doctor.
Evidently not in this woman's or woman's thing. I'm like, okay. You obviously didn't watch the video, but okay, because what was so strange about the McDonald case is that every single person in that family it's unusual. Every single person in that family had different blood type. And when they did the blood type analysis of the murder scene in the house,
Mhm.
the only blood that was found around every body, on fibers, on the bodies, around the bodies, on the weapons, was his blood type. So police could easily map his movement from the living room to the bedrooms to the kitchen and the bathroom where he tried to clean himself up, back to the bedroom where he laid down and pretended to be stabbed before the MPs got there.
That case, it's been a while, but I read the book, Tracy, remind me of the
Fatal
name.
Vision.
Fatal Vision. And I wonder if that person who left that comment for you is the kind of person who would have actually read the book and still been like, doubling down or not. I doubt they read it though. Not that the book is, makes a really strong case or comes out. I don't think it's heavy-handed at all. I think it's just hard to read a book like that literally you're inside the head of the person who did it and you are up close and personal with their psychology. And it was very similar to the O.J. Simpson book, If I Did It. There was a lot of wanting to be seen, but not be held accountable, kind of taking pride in what was done, what the person did.
I did it, but I didn't. But if I did, this is how I would do it,
Yes. Yes. There was a lot of that. Those books, they really reminded me of one another. The narcissism, the sense of grandeur, like grandiosity, especially in the McDonald case.
That's what Anne Rule, who wrote she's wrote several true crime books, but the one she's most known for is Small Sacrifices. Can't remember I remember the book, but the name of the woman, it's the one that killed, she's the former postal worker that killed all 3 of her kids in Oregon.
Diane Downs.
Diane Downs. But Anne Rule interviewed her, talked with her, and it was kind of like what happened with Fatal Vision. Jeffrey McDonald thought that the author was going to come out in favor of him. It would help him get parole. But instead, after talking to him, he realized, you did this. You're evil. And that's kind of what happened with Anne Rule. She realized, okay, you're crazy. You're evil. You did this. And she has said afterwards, the author, that she has never been the same since writing that book because she got so far into Diane Downs' head and it almost made her crazy.
Diane Downs, that's another great example of just absolute psychopathy and narcissism on display in her interviews. I want to read that book now. I haven't read that one.
The movie starring 𝗂𝗂𝗂 was really good too.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
They changed the names of the kids and a few little things, but it's pretty true to the book.
Wow. I've got if you want me to show it, I've got a clip here of one of the many interviews Susan did when she was lying.
I was going to say that they were the only, as far as I know, I don't know if it's ever happened since, but the first crime case that was simultaneously broadcast on all 3 major network morning shows at the same time. Good Morning had it. Good Morning America. Susan Smith. This interview we're going to watch. It was literally on all 3 network morning shows, which at the same time. That it was on CBS this morning. It was on Good Morning America, and it was on Today, all at the same time. That's how much coverage this case was getting.
That's crazy. It's like a presidential address back when they used to be on all the channels.
Yeah, and you can probably start it. Yeah.
I do understand why they're having to do what they're doing. I'm all they have. Right now, they have not been able to rule anyone out. I don't think I'm any more of a suspect than anyone in this case right now.
It's very painful to know that anyone would think that either of us had anything to do with this abduction of our children. But me and my wife know the truth.
Wow. It's not only was she lying to him, her husband, and having these affairs behind his back and willing to kill their children, take his children from him also, and kill their children to try to be with some other guy to make herself more attractive to this guy she was having an affair with. But also, at that point, again, like I said, once you cross certain boundaries, you're willing to cross more boundaries and more boundaries. And she would even, like, sitting in this interview with him and him not knowing that you killed the kids and you put your husband in that situation to stand up for you and to speak to your innocence, and he's totally in the dark and you're using him as a patsy, basically, as a character witness for you. And it's just so freaking dishonest and disgusting. And you took his kids from him and he doesn't know, and he's standing there defending your honor on TV. Just and no parole. No.
During the 9 days, her story kept changing, and that's one of the reasons that tipped off they had the local Sheriff Wells, and then there was a SLED got involved, of course. But the thing that tipped off the sheriff was that how much her story kept changing. You know, when you tell a lie, you have to continue to lop on top of it to make it make sense. And what really undone her is she said that she stopped at a red light, at the Monarch red light. There was the house up on the hill that she went up and used their phone. She ran up to their house after she left her car, let her car sink, saying that she had been kidnapped and carjacked, and they called the police for her. And then there was the lake across from that, down the hill. There was a red light there. She said that she had to stop because it turned red. She didn't see any other cars on the highway. There was nothing coming that she saw. She was completely alone, and all of a sudden, generic black man appears at her window with a gun. And the thing that did her in was Sheriff Wells told her that, the only way that light has a sensor, the only way that light turns red is if there's another car coming at the intersection. So that's what caught her. And he said he knew by day 2 that she wasn't telling the truth, but he wanted to see how far she would go. And so he kind of let it go on for the other 7 days, trying to figure out what happened. And then he hit her, and she eventually confessed. So just because that little detail of it being a sensor-powered traffic light, that she had no clue.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Just, this was it seemed like in the 90s, there were a lot of these women, high profile cases that were in the media because of women who were committing murder and lying about it. There was Andrea Yates. That was the 90s, right?
Yeah, that was. She was sincerely, though, mentally ill.
Yes, I'm not saying they're similar, other than I just remember it as being a decade of women in the news.
Yeah.
There was Carl, what's her name? Was it Harris, the woman in Texas who ran her husband over?
Oh God, yeah. I can't think of her name though. And then there was the other
Clara Harris.
And then there was the I want to say it was Louisiana, the mother that killed her 2 sons. I can't think of her name. God, goodness. And then there was, now this was the 80s, but then there was Judith Ann Neely, who's basically a serial killer. And then also Audrey Marie Hilley. All that case kind of broke in the mid 80s as well. So in the 80s and the 90s, you had all these women that were literally wiping out their entire families.
Darlie Routier, that was a Texas one.
Routier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there were just a lot of these cases at the time. I don't, now that I know how the media will kind of goes through trends of what they report on, I wonder if that was just sort of like, oh, the news and stuff. They were like, we've got another one we can cover, or if it just, there was an epidemic of women doing murder or something in the 90s, but it seemed like there were a lot of them in the news all the time.
And this is something that I've noticed, and it's something that I've studied. Have you noticed that there's no way to say this without it coming off as racial, because it kind of is. It's just me noticing differences. No, it's racial, not racist. Please, not trying to be racist.
Let the viewer understand.
The difference between Black women killing and white women killing. White women, it tends to be these cases where there's an affair or severe mental illness, and there's always, they spin a story and they lie, and it takes, a week or more to uncover what's happening. It's just very dramatic. Whereas when Black women kill, it's pretty much they kill, they confess for the most part, and they go to jail. So they don't get as much coverage. Some of the cases I've read, it's just very, very interesting how the difference in the two races handle things like murder. I don't know if it's probably cultural, or maybe white women are just too traumatic. I don't know. But it just seems, in all the cases that I've studied, it's pretty cut and dry when a Black woman kills. But there's always a dramatic story when a white woman kills. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a difference in which stories are covered, if that's like a media filtering thing.
It could be media bias. I know white victims get more. Yeah. White victims do get more coverage than Black victims. They do. It's, historically, historic accuracy. Like I said, it could just be media bias.
But you're right. I do notice that more often than not, if it's a woman killing, it's some type of like Susan Smith, where there's there or Diane Downs, like trying to hide what they did and lie about it at first. Also, I know statistically, it's been a while since I've read the studies, but when women kill, typically, now these may not be the cases that make it to 24/7 news coverage, but they kill in more covert ways than men on average. So they're more likely to use poison or antifreeze or something, or try and conceal what they've done.
Or something like drown, making it look like an accident.
Yes. Casey Anthony.
Susan Smith, Diane Downs, a robbery, an accident, they'll fake another crime to get away with it, or they'll fake an accident. And also, women, when they kill, they either kill their husbands or they kill their children. Very rarely do they kill the whole family. Like when a man goes off the deep edge, he kills the whole family. Family annihilator. Yeah. He kills whoever's in the house. He kills wife, kids. In the case of, there's been a couple of cases where one of either the mother-in-law or even their mother was in the house, and they killed them too, just because they were there. So they just kill everybody in the house, including the dog. Whereas women are very calculated. They either kill the children or they kill just their husband. It's never the whole family.
That makes me think of a more recent one, Christy Sheets in 2016 in Texas. She killed her 2 teenage daughters. Oh, hold on. There's someone at my house. I'll be right back, Tracy. I don't know what's happening.
No problem. Okay. No problem. But yeah, I've noticed that. Just keep the conversation going. I've noticed that it's either a full family annihilation for a man, or it's partial family annihilation for a woman. They very rarely kill the whole family, and it's just little oddities that I notice in the psychotic way that I cover true crime. But so yeah, Susan Smith not getting out, I think it's a good thing. Definitely a good thing. I don't think we want her back out in society, because it's obvious what's going to happen if she does get out. She's going to be kept by one of her, I hate to use the word simp, by one of these simp men that like to stand for her, and be a kept woman, and probably find a way to make money off of her case, which you're technically not supposed to be able to do, but people always find a way to do it. I can see her selling, the story to Netflix or Hulu to make a limited series, a movie, write a book. That's always how it turns out, even though they're not supposed to be able to make money off of their crime. They always do. So let's take a few comments here. From Zippy. Arm and train the people, so no need for all the state to off anyone, and just follow the law. State has friendly fire issues, i.e. bad people get removed, good people get let off for good behavior. I see some validity to that. I don't want to, there's certain times that I think, for example, what happened in the Daniel Penny case? What happened in the Jordan Williams case? You had somebody harassing or being a threat to other people, and you had a good Samaritan that took matters into their own hands because there was no law enforcement, and stopped other people from being hurt, unfortunately, except for the perpetrator. But yeah, I believe in that type of vigilantism where we all just look out for each other. But just arming the people and say, y'all take care of all crime, that's a recipe for disaster if the wrong people get that into their head. So there's a fine line there. Sorry, Keri, somebody had commented, instead of having the death penalty, just arm the people. And I was saying there's a time and a place for vigilantism, but I don't want to go full vigilante.
Although I understand the impetus sometimes when it's a parent, especially, and a kid has been harmed. Like, I get it.
Into the wood chipper.
I,
Yeah.
I believe in the rule of law, but I also get it. I understand that
Yeah.
kind of, who's that father who famously killed the guy who had harmed
Oh
his
goodness,
son?
in Louisiana.
Mhm.
Let me
It was
see.
it was on video,
Kills.
you know.
Yeah, they caught it. The guy, he came out from a payphone bank and just shot Leon Gary Plachau. He
Yes.
publicly killed Jeffrey Doucette, a child molester. See if I can find a video.
Yeah,
I don't know
he
if I'm allowed
waited.
to, probably can't play the video.
He
Yeah.
was at a phone bank while the
Mhm.
accused, the molester, was being walked
Mhm.
by police, and the news
Mhm.
cameras were there, and you could see him at the phone
Mhm.
payphones when the guy comes
Mhm.
by. He does it on camera, like a whole Jack Ruby kind of thing. Just comes out and takes
Yeah.
his revenge, and it's like,
Mhm.
I believe in the rule of law, but I also understand that.
Your
Like, I
stand.
don't know what
Yeah,
would
I
happen,
do.
you know.
Well, I put that in the same realm with what Daniel Penny did, with what Jordan Williams did, with what any good Samaritan that has killed a perpetrator in defense of someone else.
Mhm.
I put that in that same category. Because that man was a karate coach. Not only had he harmed Mr. Pluchet's child, he had done it to other children too, and would continue to do it to other children if he ever got out. So I believe a service was done for the greater
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Now, God forgive me. That's why some of the crime statistics are skewed, as they only focus on violent crime, which more men commit, but not on the other types of murder, which women commit more. I agree. I mean, murder's always violent, but then there's violent, and then there's passive murder, which, like Keri said, is the poisoning, the faking of another crime to cover it up, that sort of thing. Whereas men, they just go in and do it. I guess there's
Yeah.
a evil simplicity to that.
I'm just looking to see. Did she make a statement, Susan Smith, a video statement that we can watch?
Yeah. If I can get
I've got one. I think this is what I have here. Tell me if
I
this
apologize
looks
for
right.
Okay. I apologize. Yep, that's it. Go ahead and play this. This is her statement. She got real snickety at the parole hearing after she realized she wasn't getting out.
Our next case will be case number 34. Case number 34, Susan Smith. I know that what I did was horrible.
Okay, first of all, this looks and sounds to me just like her fake tears for her kids missing.
I was going to say, it's exactly the same as it was in 1994.
Exactly. You guys go back and watch the footage. There was another interview she did where she was fake crying about her kids, and there's no actual tears coming out. And it's like this, where they make the voice go up high, like they're trying not to cry, but they're not crying, and they're not actually fighting back tears.
No.
It's not authentic. It's performative. And it's funny because she's obviously aged. She looks a lot different, but she sounds the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would give anything if I could go back and change it. And I love Michael and Alex with all my heart.
We have missed Michael and Alex's kindergarten graduations, numerous birthdays.
You want me to pause it?
Oh, no. I was going to say that is David Smith. He wore a picture of Michael and Alex to the parole hearing. That's her ex-husband.
Birthday parties.
So I'm asking that you please not her parole today.
By the way, this is a real authentic emotion. He's trying not to cry. His lips are involuntarily on the corner of his mouth pulling down. He's trying, his mouth is shaking from the force of will to not cry. It's not a let me raise my voice up.
Right.
and make sure you see me wiping at things that aren't there, you know.
And hopefully in the future, but specifically today, not let her out. I miss them very much, and I love them very much.
And the thing is, Keri,
I'm very, very sorry this board is.
she did not have, first of all, she didn't have to kill the children, period. But he had told her many times he would have taken full custody of those children.
Yeah.
He was already dating another woman. He married her soon after. The woman he's still married to, they've had, he said more kids with her. They would have raised Michael and Alex as their own. If she wanted to be free of those children, she could have been free of those children without harming those children.
She didn't have to murder.
Right.
Nobody has to murder.
No.
As a reminder, Mrs. Mira did recuse herself. Ms. Susan Smith is denied parole. The vote is unanimous.
The committee made the right decision and denied her parole, at least for another 2 years.
Oh, they got to go through this again in 2 years?
So
Every 2 years. Every 2 years.
I'm not looking forward to it in 2 more years to go through this again, but at least I know for now she'll still be behind bars.
Our next case.
It's just the fake tears.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. She hasn't even changed her MO.
Nope. And I don't think she feels that much remorse. I think she's a sociopath. I don't think she has any emotions at all. She wants what she wants. And to think there were people out there that were willing to set her up in an apartment and pay her bills, and probably, as I was saying earlier, when you had stepped out, that she would be probably allowed to sell her rights to either Hulu or Netflix, just like every other murderer has, and had a limited series or a movie made out of it, or write a book and inadvertently get paid for her crime.
Yeah. Absolutely. Here, I've got one more.
Sure.
Let's just compare it in case there's anyone who doesn't know the fake crying clips we're talking about. Look, watch this compared to what you just saw.
Her hair's even almost the same. I mean, it
Yeah.
was down on the sides, but it's still pulled up on the top of the head.
I want to say to my babies that your mama loves you so much.
Across 9 emotional days.
I can't even describe what I'm going through. I mean, my heart is just, it just aches so bad.
Susan Smith betrayed America.
Whoever has them, I pray every day that you're taking care of them.
Hundreds search for her maroon Mazda, which she claimed was carjacked by a black man.
All he ever told me was, shut up or I'll kill you. He said, don't say anything else.
Her 2 small boys crying in the back seat.
They were screaming, hollering, and crying.
It's hard to imagine that the car has just vanished.
In an era before things went viral, the case went viral.
I wish somebody could turn up something.
People from coast to coast clung to their televisions, praying for the safe return of little Alex and Michael.
But I want these babies home.
We love them. We miss them.
With each plea and home video, Susan knew all along that her children sat at the bottom of John D. Long Lake, strapped in their car seats. Yet lies flowed from her lips like tears down the nation's cheeks.
To whoever has my children, that they please bring them home.
Heading into a second week, frustrations grew, along with mounting questions. Susan's story was not consistent, and she was failing lie detector tests.
Time is of the essence here.
The sheriff, who was also her godfather, took her to a church to pray. And on the 9th day, she confessed.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the...
Listen to the people react. People were shocked. This was shocking for the time that it turns out to be the mom. Now I think we're so used to human evil that we're just like, oh yeah, it's probably the mom.
That's our first suspect. That's our first suspects, his family.
Yeah.
Anytime anything happens.
Yeah, there's just so much of that fake crying in that that clip
Yeah.
too. That's just it.
Well,
If
going back,
go ahead.
no, going back to what you were saying about once you do evil, evil kind of compounds. That's the reason with this whole murder of, the Luigi Marzone or whatever his name is, the one that they're saying killed the United Healthcare CEO.
Yes.
I'm still not sold on. I'm not saying it's a whole big conspiracy like everybody's saying it is. It could be, but I still am not completely convinced it's not either the CEO's ex-wife. They need to look at her, or somebody within the company, because he was about to be deposed on that big insider trading case by the DOJ and the SEC. It could be somebody with United Healthcare wanted to take him out because he knows where all the bodies are buried. So I'm still saying eventually this is going to come down to good old-fashioned revenge or good old-fashioned greed. Somebody either wanted some life insurance or somebody wanted to protect what they have, and they took him out. I don't think it's this big revolutionary act that they seem to be saying that it is. The media, everybody thinks it is.
I hadn't even heard that, but like that kind of theory yet. I haven't been following that closely, but that's, yeah. True crime brain. That's where your brain goes. You're like, wait a minute, don't rule out people close to the person.
Right. Because they had to know his itinerary.
Yeah.
They had to know his itinerary. Somebody at the company knew his itinerary, or his family knew his itinerary. No one else knew his itinerary. Because this guy was waiting outside the hotel for him at like 6:30 in the morning. How did he know he'd be coming out of the hotel specifically around that time? How did he know what hotel? How did he know what he was wearing? How did he know, because the murder evidently got to New York on November 30th and had the whole area cased out. So he knew exactly where to go, an escape route, all of that stuff. So he knew the area. Somebody told him where Brian Thompson would be. Yeah, and I say he was probably hired by somebody close to the Brian Thompson, and they're trying to frame it as this big revolutionary act to get it off people's radar. That's just my opinion. Could turn out to be dead wrong.
Yeah, I've got to read up on that one.
Yeah.
Well, Tracy, I can't stay long tonight. I'm so sorry. I gotta go.
I know.
Thanks for having me very much.
Anytime. And thank you so much for coming on. We'll go ahead and end it here, everyone. Thank you so much for jumping in with us tonight. Have yourself a great weekend, and I'll be back soon with another video or another live stream. Until next time, we are out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.